Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are all doing well. We're going to be doing another seascape today, and I'll go ahead and list the colors that I will be using, and I'll put them in the description box below also. So I'm going to start off by using a 2-inch flat brush here, and it's going to be fairly wet, so I want some fluid paint going for this background sky color. And we're just going to do a simple sky today. Nothing crazy. I want the main focus to be on the ripples getting bigger as they get closer to you, and then we'll put some pretty sparkles on there at the end. So as you can see, I've got a pretty pastelish purple color going on. I've got some white, some yellow ochre, some ultramarine blue, and quinacridone magenta, and I'm just going side to side trying to block in the sky. And like I said, you want a nice wet brush. You want some water on the brush to get that paint spread pretty good. I think for anybody that's struggling with painting water, this is a nice little painting to do just to kind of get like a feel for painting water. And when you do it up close like this, you can kind of see like what you're actually painting, because sometimes it can be so overwhelming that when you look at water, it just looks like a bunch of shapes and colors and you don't really know where to start. But this is just a good thing to do because it's fairly simple, and it's gonna kind of give you a general concept, I think, of like how you're gonna want to place ripples and things like that, and where, you know, your highlights and shadows should go. Darken up the edges just a little bit with the same colors, just using less white. And because I'm using water, my paint is taking a little longer to dry. It's easy to blend, so just go within the direction that you were going with before. And whenever you're having problems blending, use a bigger brush. A lot of people say that they have problems with blending. Sometimes I'll put out a video and somebody will ask me, you know, how I'm getting it to the paint to flow so nicely, and it's because, one, I'm using water, and two, I'm using a bigger brush. So using a bigger brush is going to help so much more. So if you can get even like I use a 3-inch brush a lot of the time too. Try that out and see what you think. Don't try to sit there and blend a sky out with a 1-inch flat brush. It's not gonna go so well. I mean, sometimes I will use a 1-inch flat brush when I have a lot of different colors going on in the background sky, and I'm transitioning from one color to the next. It's nice to have a smaller brush, but when you're putting on just a basic sky like something such as this, use a big brush. So now that I've got the sky done, I'm gonna let that dry and put a sun in later. So I'm gonna start mixing up my darkest part of the waves and ripples, and I'm gonna start applying that to the canvas in the areas that I want them to go. And the thing that you want to really keep in mind when you're working with trying to achieve the look of the perception from the close-up ripples to the far away distant ones is you want to make sure that they're flatter the farther away that they are, meaning straight across, more horizontal. And then as they get up closer to you, you want them to kind of curve into some different types of shapes. And make sure that the ripples themselves are actually getting larger, obviously, as they're coming towards you. So I'm going to be blending in the horizon line slightly to the sky. I don't want a harsh line, so just a soft blend is fine. You don't need to worry about getting a perfect line. Just kind of blend it in a little bit. And I'm not using black yet. I will at the end. I'll take my black and go through the ripples because those are going to be pretty dark. So for now, I'm just kind of shaping some out here in the very distance. And you can see I've got a darker spot right there, and I'm going to put in, mix up a little bit lighter. I'm going to grab a little white into that combination that we had for the dark ripple and start bringing that down a little bit. So I'm working my way down. I'm not going to put a just a base color on here first. You can if you want to, if that's the way that you like to work, then you can do that. But I want to see where everything's going first. And I want to kind of test it out and see where I want to put these ripples in at. Okay, I'm picking up a lot more black on my brush now. And I'm going to come in and start trying to sketch out one of the bigger ripples as they start to get bigger. So almost think of the ripples as if you're drawing the wings of a bird. Something similar to that. And see how I'm kind of crisscrossing them as I'm doing little loops? Like I said, you want to have them kind of meet at some point, so it almost looks like bricks, like you're laying bricks. And I'm going to make this guy up front really big. I'm going to come back through, and on the other side, right at the end of the other one, I'm going to sneak in another ripple. So that's a good indication of where I'm going to have these things. And now I'm going to start filling in between. And I'm going to use a little more blue and a little more white on my brush as I'm doing that. Just color it in, fill it in. Make sure you're getting a nice blend so you can go over the black that you already put in, but don't go over it too much there, because you want that part to be defined. The very tip of the ripple, you want it to be defined. Now I've got some of that purple color, and I want to start using that in certain areas. It doesn't have to be in every area, but pick some of that up on your brush and incorporate it here and there. You don't want just a straight color, the same color. You want to have a lot of variation in it. So don't be afraid to pick that color up along with the blue. I'm going to even make a little more lavender color there to fit in this one area. And if you lose part of the ripples, if you kind of go over some of the black parts you've already gone over, don't, it's okay. You can reincorporate those later on. Just worry about getting a nice blend from each color to the next, because like I said, that's what's gonna make it look really like some water, like some really good blended water. And I'm even going over everything just to get it all nice and blend it out. So that's a good starting point. Now I'm going to start going over everything with more detail. So I'm going to be grabbing a smaller brush. I'm going to be grabbing a 1-inch angled brush here. Something with a little more control, and I want to sneak in some little details, like some more of the little ripples coming off of the big ones. So go ahead and grab a smaller brush if you can. I'm just going to readjust this so you can actually see what I'm doing a little better. It's kind of a pain to have to do this. because sometimes it gets stuck. But there we go. So now you can kind of see a little better of what I'm going to be doing. So I've switched to my, like I said, angled brush, which is really, really nice for waves and ripples and things like that. It just, the shape is so nice. You've got a point and it comes out like as you're putting in your ripples, obviously you want them to get smaller at the ends. So this is like a really nice brush for that. So same motion, or same thing we were doing with the big ripples. Almost like little bird wings. Like if you were painting a distant bird, you know how you make that M shape almost? So try to follow that technique. In between these big ones, that's what we're going to be doing, is smaller ones. So it's going to be really detailed and really pretty. And then once we put the sparkles on, it's going to look really nice. And now that we've put in the other ripples, you kind of have an idea of like how the water is flowing. So just try to keep going now that you have a basic shape of everything. Try to go within the shape of the water, within the movement of the water. And again, make sure that you're blending everything out. If you have to use your finger, go ahead and use your finger. It does help. So I'm going to start outlining the ripples, which is going to give the effect of a highlight. So I'm going to just pick up some white with that blue color that we already have mixed up. And I'm literally just outlining each ripple. And again, you want a nice blend. You want it to kind of just taper off a little bit. So use your finger if you need to, or a brush. And like I said, just go over each little dark spot that you have. It's going to make it pop. It's going to give it some depth. Those are going to look like highlights on top of the ripples that you have. So go ahead and just try to work on outlining each little area that you already put in. Don't cover the black up, just go right over the top of it, just a little bit, not a lot. So I'm just reincorporating some of those ripples that we lost earlier when I was blending things out. And picking up a little white, and we're going over those ripples, just like we did earlier. So I'm going to work on just incorporating the highlights over these dark areas, and then I'm going to start working on adding the sun in. felt like this ripple needed to be bigger, so I did add more black, and I'm making it just slightly larger here. So I'm just applying a white dot to the canvas with a filbert brush, and I'm just blending it in the shape of a circle with my finger. So I'm going to start mixing somewhat of a similar shade to what we have in the sky. And I'm using a small flat brush, something that's clean. You can use the same brush you've been using, but I'm going to use a new brush, something smaller, because I don't want to overpower it with this color. I just want it in certain areas. So I'm going to mix up that shade. And just a little more of a purple hue to it. And I'm just going to start applying it in random areas. So I'm going to just keep working this in. And I'm trying to concentrate on making it closer to the middle part, because I'm going to have some peach tones through the very mid section of the water. And then on top of that, we're going to be adding pure white dots, and you want it to fade off into lighter tones as you get farther out, because that's what's going to make it glow. That's what's going to make those white dots glow, is if you have a good bright color in the background, and then eventually that color fades off into even a slightly darker color. So you want kind of like a gradual glow, basically, is what I'm trying to get at, if that makes sense. And I'm kind of going in like little sweeping motions, following the pattern of the ripples up front here. And I'm not doing it in the very, very front of the painting, just in this midsection to back area. So basically, throughout this painting, I'm basically just working from my dark to light. And after this tone, this purple color, I'm going to be mixing a peach color. And I'm going to be applying that. See how I'm kind of gradually working my way in to the very mid section, which is going to be the brightest point. So you want it to just kind of eventually taper off on each side when it fades into that dark blue. So we go from like a dark blue on the edges of the water, and then as it moves closer to the midsection, you've got your brightest point, but it's a gradual brightness. I'm going to move in closer so you can see the color that I'm mixing and what I'm going to be doing to the midsection. So I've got my primary red, a little bit of cad yellow, and some white. So I've got an even brighter color now. And I'm going through and I'm just kind of dotting, just kind of blotting it with my paintbrush. I'm not really swiping my paintbrush. I just want little dots here and there. Now I'm taking white and I'm just kind of dotting it over that. So just keep doing that method. And as I'm moving up closer, I'm making my strokes on the canvas heavier handed and brighter, because I want them to really pop out right in the front here. So now I've got a smaller round brush, very small brush, a detail brush. And I'm not going quite bright white yet. Working my way up there. Like I said, work your way up from darkness to lightness. That's what's going to give you that gradual glow. So I'm just doing almost white, but not quite. Little dots in the center here. And working my way down. And then the very last step will be to use the brightest white. Now I've got not a lot of paint on my brush, and as I'm putting in these midsection dots, I'm kind of like pulling my brush down and upwards, just swiping it ever so lightly. You don't want a lot of paint, but just a little bit, and it'll kind of give the effect of little sparkles glowing. You don't have to add that. I think it's a pretty little touch. I like when water sparkles and leaves that glare. So now I'm taking my brightest white and I'm dotting it on. Then as I was dotting it on, I had some yellow ochre on the edge of my pinky. So I just got a wet, clean brush and kind of lifted the color up off of the canvas with it. And then once you do that, you clean it off real good. Then you go back through, keep lifting it up until it's off of there completely. to leave some space between each dot because that's what's gonna really create some of that brightness too, is by having some dark areas in between the light areas. I mean, to get the brightest white, you need something for it to bounce off of, so it's good to leave a little bit of space in there for other colors to show through. A little bit more brightness through the middle, right around where we have the dots. See how it just makes it glow? You can even come down through here on the little tiny ripples coming off of this big one and incorporate some of the lightness down there too. My initial intention was to try to get the back area kind of shining like in a bokeh effect, but I didn't really like that, so I'm going back through that and just dotting on some really bright spots right where that farthest water is. I just seem to like that better. So that's pretty much it for this painting. It's not a very long painting, but it is a good painting to do, especially if you're struggling, like I said, with painting water. It just really helps you to get the feel for the movement of the waves and the ripples. I hope that you guys give this one a try. I think you'll really like it, especially the sparkly water part. That's my favorite. I really like doing this part, so that's about it. I hope that you guys really enjoy this one, and of course, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy and away from all the chaos out there, and hopefully you're just staying inside painting. So I will see you guys next time, and remember to subscribe if you like what you saw, and also to hit the notification bell for future videos.